but I just published tonight the first installment of Heroic Inspirations. If you remember, Heroic Inspirations was the book I published a while ago through a small publishing house company, but that small publishing house went under. They went out of business during COVID, and they just gave me the rights to the book back and said I'm free to do whatever I wanted with it. So I was thinking, yeah, I should revamp it because, I'd written some chapters in it that I wouldn't even include today. They wanted me to do certain things, that I wasn't really happy with. So I've been reworking it, and I thought, let me just, now that I'm doing like quick reads on my short tales on Amazon Kindle, I'll just start releasing it as a little short reads first, like a chapter at a time. So I've got here the Heroic Inspirations Part 1, the DC Trinity. And this is, of course, Superman, Batman, and Wonder Woman. And I revamped the chapter, really revised it. I got some great application questions and stuff like that at the end. And it's a short read. It's $2.99, as my other short reads are. And again, you don't have to have a Kindle, an Amazon Kindle, to be able to read this. You can read it on your computer, on your Droid, whatever. Just get the Kindle app, which is free. Pay no attention to the ridiculously full Amazon cart on the right there. That's my daughter. She loves to just add stuff to my Amazon cart, even things that she already has. She's got that sleeping bag already, but she just adds up, and it's just like, $1,600 worth of stuff. Luckily, she doesn't know how to actually complete the purchase, but she just adds stuff to my cart. So that's my girl. All right. So I wanted to talk about that because that kind of, I had that on my mind. I had the Heroic Inspiration stuff on my mind. And I watched this show, this episode of Millennium. And I want to give you just a little bit of the rundown of this scene that I'm talking about. If you've never seen it, don't worry. I'll just explain what you need to know for this scene. And it really blew me away. It was so good. It really has to do with a lot of things we talk about Batman-wise, especially how what real strength is, what real masculinity is, what real heroism is, and what people's insecurity about strength or masculinity drives it to sometimes, which is ridiculous. So in this episode, Frank Black is the main character. He used to work for the FBI. Now he's a consultant for law enforcement agencies, and he's part of the Millennium group and everything. And at one point when he was working for the FBI, they were after this serial killer who would mark his victims. He would carve like a half moon in their palm, this long half moon in their palm, and that was like his way of marking them for the sacrifice or whatever. And he came upon Frank Black in this raid that they were doing in this building, and he actually marked Frank Black's palm. He took his knife and carved this, big half moon thing into Frank Black's palm. Another agent was able to intercept him, though, real quick before he was able to kill Frank Black. And then it ended up, the criminal killed that agent, and it was like Frank Black was standing off with the serial killer with the gun there, but the serial killer had spent all the ammunition in his gun. So Frank Black just held him at gunpoint and said, you're under arrest. Years later, he's no longer with the FBI. He's a consultant for the Millennium Group. And he comes across this serial killer who's using the same MO, carving that half moon into people's palms and whatnot. And he realizes this must be the old cellmate of this serial killer, because the serial killer he met back then is in prison now. He's in life sentences in prison. So Frank Black goes to talk to this serial killer in prison. And he's in there, and the warden's telling him, look, this is a bad idea. This man is incredibly violent. He's killed prison guards. There's no surveillance we have in this room that you want to talk with him in. We don't have surveillance set up. There's no window on the door. This is just a metal box that you want to sit here in this room with him. And Frank Black wants to talk to him because he wants to get some ideas from him that maybe can help him catch his cellmate who's out there doing these murders now. So he's doing it in order to save others. And he believes that in this interview he can get some information from the serial killer. And the warden tells him, look, it's dangerous. You're going to be in there alone with him. And when he comes in, Frank Black demands that they take his handcuffs off. So it's just Frank Black in this metal box with this incredibly dangerous, violent serial killer. And he insists upon it. And so he signs this waiver that says he's not, responsible. He understands they won't barter for his life in a hostage situation and all this stuff. And they shut the door. They gave him a button, a little electric button. And he said, when you want this interview to end, push this button and a guard will come and lock the door. And that's all he's got. So he's talking to the serial killer, and he eventually gets the serial killer to open up. The serial killer doesn't recognize him at all yet. Doesn't recognize him as some, because it was a dark building where they met before when he was an FBI agent. And he's asking him questions about his kills and about his, trying to get information from him that might help him solve this new crime. And eventually he gets the guy talking about how he carves that half moon into people's palms and it makes them his, and it makes them his sacrifice. And Frank Black holds up his palm and shows him the scar on his palm and says, "You didn't get all of us." Shows him that and then the serial killer remembers, "You're that FBI agent. You're the guy that, I didn't get to kill." And the serial killer's eyes get really, dark. And he says, "When you push that button, it takes them 33 seconds to even open the door." He says, "Imagine what I can do to you in 33 seconds. And Frank Black, if you know Lance Henriksen's face, it's just very stoic. He pushes the button over to the serial killer. He goes, "You control when this interview ends." He says, "I could have killed you that day. You'd already taken down FBI agents. You had a gun in your hand. Nobody would have batted an eye if I'd have just killed you right then and there. But I didn't." He said, "I was afraid to come here today. But I wasn't afraid of what you would do. I was afraid of what I might do. And now I know." I watched that and I thought, wow, that is real strength. That is a real masculine hero. That is somebody 100% in control of himself, 100% tough. Like, that is tough guy right there. Tough guy isn't the Punisher, booming in and torturing somebody for daring to do this or that. No, Frank Black, that was a tough guy. And it was such a Batman moment. That was Batman. That's what Batman should be. And people can't see that today. No, he should be. And Frank Black in the series, he's always dealing with the kind of stereotypical homicide detectives, the detectives who, are assigned to homicide cases. And they're kind of stereotypical in the show, as they are in a lot of shows, where they've seen so much of this horrible stuff that they're just kind of, they're free and easy about bending the laws and bending the, criminal rights and whatever. And they just want to take this guy out. Maybe we shouldn't even try to take him alive. We should just take him out and, off the streets, which is the whole old argument. People, Batman should kill. It doesn't make any sense that he just puts him in the asylum and blah, blah, blah. And that is real strength. That is real strength. Not being so insecure that you need people to perceive you as a tough guy. That is what we see all the time in our culture today. And that is what you're hearing when people are trying to argue that Batman should kill his criminals and whatnot. It's an insecurity. Think about the very low level cultures out there. And this is nothing, this is across different races and everything, but the really low, think about gangs. Whatever race gang or mixture of race gangs or whatever. Your typical gangster, yeah, they'll enact some very violent actions on you. Don't get me wrong, but they're doing it out of insecurity. It's that, don't talk to me, just that kind of, I've got a posture. It's this is very primal. It's like little alpha males in a pack trying to prove which one's the toughest, and fighting over the meat or whatever, It's this animalistic, it's this low level reptilian stem doing the thinking. And that comes from insecurity, right? Because you think about a wolf pack or something, the alpha has to posture and has to prove that they are the number one, the alpha dogs or whatever, and then get everybody, because if they don't, then the other ones will attack them, right? So it's an insecurity. I need to be perceived as tough. That's not strength. When you come to the higher functioning levels of the brain and you're a human being, that's not strength and that's not being tough. That's being incredibly afraid and insecure and scared. And yeah, you may do horrible things. You may be violent. You may, do horrible things to people, but it's not because you were tough. It's because you were terrified that people wouldn't think you were tough. So you had to do those things. You were forced to do those things psychologically just to prove yourself. That's not tough. And people want heroes like that, which drives me bananas. I mean, people always say, "Oh, Batman, he's insane. He should just be like, he's mentally and actually Tom King in the DC comics now, vengeance is the thing that defines Batman now. It's It's love for Wonder Woman, it's heroism for Superman, and vengeance for Batman. If someone could just... I'm calm. We don't want to enact violence on Tom King. If someone could fire him and refuse to let him touch any other superhero ever in his life, that would be wonderful. Because he does not understand these characters. Batman is so far above that. He's about self-control. He's about determination. He's about training. He's about justice. And in the vengeance that you might use in Batman rhetoric, like the classic Kevin Conroy line, I am vengeance, I am the night, I am Batman. It's not, I need to exact personal vengeance. I need to get back at you because a criminal once killed my mommy and daddy. No, it's vengeance in the term of justice. It looks like vengeance because Batman's a vigilante in the city where the police officers aren't doing their job. There's a lot of corruption in law enforcement and local government in the city. So in order to exact justice, it needs to look like vengeance. Whatever. Batman will wear the cowl. He'll wear the bat costume. But he's not there to be a supernatural woo-woo, He's there to enact justice, and he's doing whatever he needs to get that justice done. So it really just drives me crazy, that kind of reasoning. And that scene just drove it home. That is real strength. As I've said before, it's like the whole healthy parenting lesson. If you're going to discipline your child, it needs to be out of the desire to teach them, not the desire to get revenge on them. So often you see parents just so mad that you would misbehave and make them look bad in public. And there's just sort of, or even if it's in private, there's just this, how dare you disrespect my authority or whatever. And there's this knee-jerk emotional reaction. Even if it's not outright abuse, outright, physical or whatever, it's still this, it's an abuse of some sort because it's coming from revenge that rather than I'm wanting to teach my child right from wrong. They need discipline. Children need discipline, but it needs to come from the right place. It needs to come from a place of strength. And when you're secure in who you are, you're secure in your strength and your belief systems and all of that, then you can truly be the tough guy, right? Then that's real toughness. That's real strength. That's real. So I love characters like the iconic Batman, like Frank Black in Millennium. Man, we need more characters like that. And again, I'm halfway through the first season. Maybe it goes awry later. I don't know. But so far, it's just blowing my mind. It's really something. So I just wanted to have that little kind of topic on my mind and put that out there. It was even in some of the readings tonight when we were at Mass. Jesus talking about the Sermon on the Mount and turning the other cheek and whatnot. And our priest was talking about how the Bible says, be angry, but do not sin. And that it's not a sin to be angry. There's, plenty of things to be angry about. Jesus was angry. But you don't act from a place of wrath. You act from a place of wanting to make something right, And that's strength. And that's something that so many people aren't capable of doing this day and age. You see it all the time on the internet tough guys, the guys who hide behind a pseudonym and troll people or whatever, or are the really insecure people where if they leave a snarky comment or somebody leaves a snarky comment to them in reply or maybe whatever, and they've just got to go back at them and how dare you this and that. I'll never forget this one guy. I forgot what video it was even on, but I made a video, talking about something in my geek opinions. It's probably a Snyder bro. It's probably a Snyder video because this really meets that character profile. And this guy was like, F you, professor, you're blah, 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 blah. And in the video, now it's coming back to me, I was talking about that the Snyder films, that's the behavior that those films inspire. They don't inspire people to be better or to be heroes. They inspire people to be horrible trolls. And this guy was just horribly trolling me. So instead of, blocking him, I just pinned his comment, which I do sometimes. I just pinned it to the top of the comment thread because it was just making my point. And a lot of people, when you pin a comment, they'll come at that person. They'll be like, look at you. You're just making his point. How are you? Blah, blah, blah. I won't respond to him. I'll just pin the comment there. And he was meticulously and there was so many comments where people were going at him. And he must have just been spending all day or every bit of his free time, because every time somebody would come back at him, he would at their name and go, so-and-so, F you. So-and-so, F you. It was just like... He had to have the last laugh because he was a tough guy, and that's that kind of insecurity, which is just, when you see what's going on psychologically, it's pathetic. And I mean that literally. Like you have a certain pathos for this poor person who's so wrapped up in their own insecurities, then they're so desperate for you to think they're a big boy and they're tough and everything. And it's and that's what people want our superheroes to be. Absolutely not. Absolutely not. If you're somebody who thinks Batman should kill, get some help. I mean, I'm not saying you're definitely on this, level or scale, but there's got to be something going on there,